Okay, great. In that case, we yeah.
That's right.
Okay, we are live.
Right on.
What's up, everybody? We're here with Andres. We have a couple people in the room already. Um, he's gonna fill in the gaps, fill in the blanks that I couldn't when we were talking about the plant medicine retreat that we're having in May. A bunch of people hit me up asking about like the screening process or what exactly we're going to be using as far as what plants, the setup and the structure, what to expect, how to go into it, just all the basic questions. And Andres is going to be actually leading the um, the ceremonies. So so far, what up, Theodian and Jackie? How you guys doing? Nice to see you in here. Um, I guess there's not too many people in here, so there's not really. We'll hit questions as people start to come in. I guess on the desk, maybe some frequently asked questions that you come across a lot whenever you're setting these things up would be a good
Mm-hmm.
start.
For sure, man. So usually, people want to know how is this helpful, and what context, accommodations. What's the flow of the medicines? A lot of people think that we're combining medicines, and we explain that that's not the case, and in the sense that we're not taking two medicines at the same time. There's usually a gap in between. We respect the space in between each of them, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. Tradition, what each medicine helps us with, and yeah, I mean we can start talking about all of that. So first and foremost, the most important thing to understand is that this is a healing retreat. This is a healing ceremony, and so we actually consider all of this sacred work. So it's the most important kind of work that we can be doing for ourselves, for our communities, for our environments. And so this is a perfect medium to get to know ourselves. It's sacred medicines. They're not substances that we want to depend on. They're sacred tools that assist us, and they have life essences, life spirit that assist us in the knowing of ourselves. By different medicines have different ways of interacting with the body, with the senses, with the mind, with everything else. And so to start off with the retreat, we have the option. It's going to be from Friday to Sunday, and so people will have the option of coming a little early for those who want to participate in an optional cleansing ceremony, which is a circle of Campbell. And Campbell is a medicine that comes from a frog, and it detoxes the body. It's one of the most powerful detoxifiers. And so it's a burn. You know, it burns on the skin of the arm. For the women, traditionally, is done in the near the ankle, left or right, so that the medicine flows through the body up, and it passes through the womb. So it's a healing, of all of those things that could be stagnant, or the female aspect as the creation, the creator aspect of this reality. Sometimes we lack some imbalances on the sacral chakra, and so on and so forth. And so this medicine is relatively short. It's like about 20 to 30 minutes of a process. You purge a lot. It's non-psychoactive, although you can have some vision. And so the way that it works is, your body temperature rises a little bit, and then you start to release, a lot of metals, a lot of bile, um, old bile, and it's uh, you're drinking a lot of water through the medicine. You start to feel very nauseous, and then you purge, and it sends you to number two, and obviously you purge through like vomit too. And so after this, all of that old bile and energy and free radicals and things like this that you expel from the body, they're of a heavy nature, heavy consciousness. So it's what we call in the tradition, we call it hucha, and so it's acidity basically. We are purging ourselves of acidity, and so the body is now it's mainly for detoxing the liver, and so the body becomes really clean, really light. It's a physical process, so after the process, people rest for a couple of hours, just integrating, relaxing, and recovering. But then the body is in a perfect setting for going into the medicines. And then the first medicine will be at night. And we start with mother ayahuasca. And mother ayahuasca, like I mentioned, of course, mother implying the feminine. And it's a medicine that helps us go and introspect. The way that most of all the medicines work is by pushing us out of our comfort zone. So what we find is ourselves are at our most vulnerable. We're going to feel very vulnerable. To be able to come to terms with ourselves in truth, in sincerity, in honesty about what is it that we feel about ourselves. So we're prompted to see false beliefs, false perceptions, maybe some old grief that we haven't really come to terms with, that we haven't harmonized. It could be a lot of times, negative patterns, emotional patterns, and mental patterns of disharmony within ourselves and within our environment too. We do a traditional ceremony where we open up the sacred space and we open up the circle of the ceremony, circles of protection, and we call forward the spirits of the lineage, the teachers, our masters that are with us, guiding, that we have been initiated with, and we call our personal ancestors too. So we work with the lineages of male and female from 7 generations, 254 ancestors. We carry more, but at the very least 7 generations, it's what is required for more awareness of what flows through us, right? And so we call them forward, and it's a period of in between 4 to 6 hours, depending on how much medicine and depending on the sensitivity of each person. And it's a journey of self, like really deep introspection, real introspection, where we are able to see, the patterns that we hold, the feelings that we hold in our subconscious. Sometimes, we operate from a sort of a autopilot, and we have this way of filtering life, based on our formative years, what we have been given from 0 to 9, 0 to 11 years. And we work with different archetypes throughout the night, the archetypes of the savior, the archetypes of the victim, and the archetypes of the executioner. Just a few to start off with. Before we begin with the ceremony, we share a lot of the context of what is it that we're gonna meet, and how to navigate all of these spaces. We're not doing this by any means recreationally. This is like a deep work. This is what they call the path of the hero, because the path of the warrior, because we're really going to the deep end of our subconscious, to meet those not broken, but really dark places of ourselves that we have been exposed to through our lives, sometimes even past lives, and that we have either consciously or unconsciously accepted as part of who we are. And so a lot of this, again, might be very much the path that we chose before we incarnated in this lifetime, right? And so now it's time to become conscious of it. So to anyone that it gets called to this type of work, this is what we're going to do. This is what the ceremony is, and we begin to heal little by little. This is not a fixed ticket, and so what we do is, gradually start to become more aware and more aware and more aware of how is it that we feel, why we feel the way we feel, and what kind of thoughts are we harboring on a day-to-day basis. And so the medicine can be purgative, meaning like you could purge throughout the night, both as vomit, but also sometimes a type of purge is crying, laughing, and obviously going to the bathroom, number 2, and so on and so forth. And so after that, we receive a lot of insight, a lot of guidance, a lot of help. After sometimes we go through these purging moments, We release also a lot of dark, dense energy, these dense hucha, which is slow vibrating energy. And so, by releasing all of this, then we're able to enter a space within ourselves that is of higher essence, and we have connections, and we have an opportunity to really connect to that higher aspect of ourselves, which is super clear. It's a super consciousness. And in these spaces, we sometimes meet relatives that have some messages. We can meet deities, angels, archangels, whatever your your current setting of perception, your structure of beliefs. Say, for example, if you were brought Hindu, then you might see Ganesh, you might see Shiva, Lakshmi, Parvati, depending on what you are. If you were raised Christian, then you see, Jeshua, some saints, some archangels, and so on and so forth, right? And so it's a really tangible space, because what happens is the ego gets really thinned out, and then because there's no veil of falsities and attachments and rejections and likes and dislikes, is pure. It's a pure state of being. Then we're able to receive these messages, and then so that's it. We finish around 2 a.m., in between 12 and 2 a.m. And then after that we have breakfast in the morning, and then we come with San Pedro. San Pedro is going to be the plant medicine. They call it Huachuma. In Spanish, San Pedro, they actually, the natives called it San Pedro because it is said to hold the keys to the kingdom of heaven. It's a really, really beautiful medicine that actually brings a lot of inspiration, and it helps us integrate everything that we experience through the ayahuasca with clarity, and with right knowing from within ourselves, to give the right meaning, to give the right meaning of what is it that it means. A lot of the times what happens is, we go through ayahuasca and we see tons of things, and it's kind of hard to make sense of it. And it's what, one of the things that it's out there in the internet, and, like just the sacred medicine community, is the importance of integration. And so this medicine is just for that, is for to be able to, now that we're open and we're clean and we have released some of the dense aspects of ourselves, of our history, of our past, then it's time to integrate it with right knowing. And so that's the purpose. It's really nice, it's really beautiful. It can be psychoactive, although it's much more emotional. So people go and now experience the emotions of everything that they just released, to be able to, in a sober way, in a very clear way, say, this is what I want, and this is what I don't want. We'll have, some music, we'll have food, we'll have deep conversations, we'll keep on sharing wisdom throughout the day. And it's a very rich day, it's a rich day for integration. And then, depending on the energy, we're going to do some rituals. We're going to do some rituals to, anchor the change. Rituals in most traditions, whether you look into the Hindu traditions, or in this case, what we're going to do is some traditions from the Andean lineages. The ritual, the way that it works, and the way that the reason why it's so powerful for change, is ritual works with the subconscious mind. And so we start to reprogram the subconscious mind so that we're able to feel different based on those changes. So now, for example, if we have an issue with anger, things that would anger us before, because we have established a direct communication of reprogramming how we feel about life, then the things that used to anger us or depress us or whatever, they're no longer going to have that power over us. And when they come, we're actually going to be able to see them instead of reacting to it, and getting meshed and really tangled with the day to day, with our brothers and sisters, or with situations, or sometimes even with ourselves. Sometimes a lot of people have inner conflict, and so we're able to see these now. And so this is the purpose of rituals. We're going to do a few rituals, and depending on the energy, the flow of energy, we might have the last circle of medicine uh, Saturday night or Sunday morning. Excuse me. And the last medicine is Sapito, Padre Sapo, which is Bufo. And this is, we leave it at the end. We leave it at the end because this is the medicine that actualizes everything. so that it's not just a memory. A lot of people leave the retreat sometimes and they're like, "Oh, I had a really nice experience." Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you ask them a couple of months later, a year later, or sometimes even just weeks later, and the whole thing's all over the same, because there was no real experience of what it means to live this change. And so Padre Sapo, after we have released all of this energy with ayahuasca, we have integrated. Now it's time to make it tangible within our consciousness at all levels: conscious mind, unconscious, subconscious. The unconscious is going to awaken. And so it's a very powerful medicine. It just lasts like 20 minutes. I'm not sure if you've seen any of the videos of what that medicine is. Have you?
Yeah, I have quite a few times. It's been a while since I looked at it, but yeah, I definitely looked into it a lot over the
Right.
years. We do have two questions though so far.
Sure.
Salabi wants to know about a dress code because sometimes white is preferred, and she also asks if women on their menstruation if it'll affect their ability to participate because she's saying that some ceremonies do. So those are.
Yeah, yeah, they do. They do. I'm sorry, I missed the first question. Can you repeat
Oh,
that?
the first question is a dress code. Is there a dress code?
Yeah, some doctrines, like for example, Santo Daime, they require that everybody wears white because there's this belief, that we should reject density, that we should reject darkness, and and we respect everyone. We respect everyone, but this is not so much about making a separation of existence.
Uh huh.
Density exists, darkness exists. So that's the reason why they do it. They dress in white so that they have this belief that because you're wearing white, dark energy is going to reflect upon you. They're not going to do it. If you feel like you want to do this, and you feel called to do this, by all means, if you feel like it's going to support you in your journey,
Yeah.
we don't expect or demand that anyone does anything like this. But it's up to you.
This
There's
def-
no dress.
it definitely
In
seems
fact,
like
like some of, sorry, say it again.
I would say it definitely seems like an unorthodox setting, even though just that we're using different plants to begin with. I've actually never seen them all in a weekend used. 3 different medicines. It's usually just for me. It's always ayahuasca. For a week straight, even in some cases.
Yeah, there's a lot of value. Like there's retreats. We have a couple of friends that are facilitators with us sometimes, and they work in the jungle, and they do yage retreats for 7-10 days. It's quite profound, and it offers. But this is a retreat that we want to go really deep and be able to integrate. Those are sometimes really radical changes that people working and living on a day-to-day basis, and like working here in the in the Western world, sometimes they don't have the resources to go for a whole week, and spend 3 grand or whatever, whatever it is, including airfare and everything to the jungle to do all of these. But another thing is that there are very, very radical changes in the energy, and sometimes it's pretty hard to integrate. It's but nonetheless they offer value, and it's just different type of setting. Going forward into the period, into the cycles, the moon cycles for women, it's fine. They can actually come. Just be aware that all of these medicines, they can actually potentiate, like increase the intensity of the cycle, of the moon cycle. So we don't say no, but we request that people come, women come prepared, just in case there is, just a little bit more flow.
All right. Then we had one more question too, and it was, is the ceremony done in complete darkness?
Well, it's at night, and so we do have an ofrenda with candles. We have everything, but it seems, we will be prepared just in case there's rain, but it's going to be an open setting, so we will be under the stars, and if it rains, we will have a place where we can all be. But yes, it's in darkness. It's the way that it's done traditionally.
Just a quick reminder for people who are in the room right now. There's a Discord for a Discord channel in the group for everyone who wants to join. I've had 3 people contact me of interest so far. You can all It's my Instagram I check most often. My Instagram is just man of, I'm typing it in the chat right now, Man of Letters Co. My email is keithgarcia808 at gmail.com. Yeah, so that's one way you guys can get a hold of me if you're interested. It will be in May the 8th through the 10th.
Right.
Yeah, 8th through the 10th. So that's that. Another question asking if you know the age of the San Pedro.
Um, I believe it's, relatively fresh, within, the last year or so, but we can definitely, I can double check with my source. All I know is we take in between um, 25 and 50 grams is by no means heroic. It's meant to be integration. Although some people can request more if you want to go deeper, and depending on that, that's what actually depends on whether we take Padre Sapo that night or if we wait until the next morning. Um, it lasts usually like about 8 hours though. The emotions just all throughout the day. So we take it in the morning, and 25, 50 grams lasts us for like about 8 to 10 hours.
There's an interesting tidbit that you should go into about ayahuasca ceremonies in the feminine side of the plant, as far as San Pedro, and the masculine side of plant healing. That is super interesting for me at least, and I think it's worth noting for the people who are listening too.
Right. So yeah. So a lot of people, it's so mainstream right now because obviously it's so powerful, ayahuasca. But a lot of the times we forget that what has made the feminine, the divine feminine throughout the world in history so balanced, it has been the masculine. So it has been the overly masculine, the dominant masculine, that has damaged the relationship in between the balance, and so made it unbalanced. And so by using San Pedro, the divine masculine, we begin to heal those aspects of ourselves. And it doesn't matter if you're men or women, we all have both aspects within ourselves, and so we heal those aspects of the masculine within ourselves, and we embody this divine masculine more and more. Gradually, it's a gradual progression that you know help us understand the personality more, the ego more, the impulses and emotions more, so that we cut off the patterns of damaging, or being overly dominant and damaging the feminine,
So we
so we
can
can
respect.
respect our own femininity, and we can respect the feminine in life, the divine feminine, which is what this era is about, right? And so we need the balance of both. It's not only about going just feminine, 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 feminine. Obviously, it does have a value and a purpose for ceremonies, like we were talking just now. But we also want to balance. We are beings of balance of those two energies which exist within us. So we want to balance those.
Is there um, the tribes that that have been using this for thousands of years? Do they have an opinion on that? Do they feel that the plant is plants tend to be feminine or masculine, like the natives in the Southwest U.S.? Do they have the same ideas, like, oh, this plant is masculine dominant, and the ones who are taking in the jungles religiously, do they balance it with other plant medicines, or do they just
Some of,
Some
some
of
of
them
them do.
some of them do?
There, yeah, there will be groups that are purists and they only do yage. There's some other groups where the maestros and the taitas will just do ayahuasca, and so there's such a thing as just one, and it's fine, they're embodying they're choosing that path, and then they're on the same at the same time there will be the other aspect of it, which is you will see some shamans, some teachers that are only focused on using San Pedro, and they've never used. They're really powerful teachers, and with like really deep embodied knowledge, and they use only San Pedro, and so we can observe the difference in between the energy and the way they speak, the way they flow, the way they understand all of these things. It's a variation, and so we don't want to submit to either one of them, just only one of them, because we understand, that there's a balance, And so this is a time of merging, traditions. This is a time of unity and not so much separation, although they don't really separate in between themselves. They respect each other because they have achieved those levels of understanding and coherence. There's really no separation. But now when the time comes to heal ourselves and to really understand ourselves through everything that is available, that's the same reason why we take the principles of Advaita Vedanta, and we pick very specific wisdom jewels of the, for example, the Ashtavakra Gita and the Kero lineages, the Kero traditions, and then Andean traditions too. And so by understanding that there's a balance of the masculine and the feminine, then we put it in practice. We put it in practice, and we benefit from this understanding in a practical way. They do. Like, for example, if you look into the Kero or the Hindu paths, even though they don't do medicine, the Kero one or some of the Pampa Misayos or the Alto Misayos, the traditional ones, the ones that are very much in the communities, they don't really do sacred medicines. Same with gurus. They used to, thousands of years ago, the gurus used to take a soma until it become outlawed. There was like they say like no more substances for consciousness.
That
But anyways, regardless of that, the understanding is that. So you know if there's usually a judgment within ourselves about that, it's our own right or wrong, trying to understand things by means of right or wrong, rather by experience, rather
yeah,
by
yeah, definitely. That that idea is always something we talk about on this channel a lot. Is whenever I see
oh,
an overload of either the masculine or the feminine, it's like an immediate, not red flag, but like an immediate, like take a step back and think: is there a balance? Or is there an imbalance? Are you?
right,
And I never
right.
thought of it the way you said it. How ayahuasca became so prominent. It seems that the world, at least the leaders, are overly masculine based. It's all specific. It's not integral. It's not a wholesome approach. It's very focused, but excluding the whole, which is like very masculine. It's like would make sense that the ayahuasca just you would lean into the feminine play. Even like cannabis is exploding, which tends to be it actually is the female part of the plant that you're smoking. Is the even in the physical sense, it's the it's the feminine.
Yeah,
So that's why when you brought that up, I was like, oh, I've actually had that thought, but I've never talked to someone in your position that also had that thought and was working to balance it.
it's truth. It's truth. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, definitely.
Let me see. There. Oh, what does the screening consist of?
Well, the screening is a lot of safety issues for yourself, and it's safety first with us. We want to make sure that you are have a balanced neurochemistry, that you're not taking SSRIs, that you can commit in a disciplined way to a diet that is conducive of a fruitful process, making sure that you're not going to be eating tyrannins, taking tyrannins, like pork, no alcohol. If you enjoy, weed, we actually consider Santa Maria, mother, cannabis. It's a feminine teacher too, and they use it in the Huichol tradition, and so we respect the use, but we understand that there's a few medicines that do not gel at all, and then they alter neurochemistry so much that they could be, a little rough, especially for someone coming for the first time. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case for everyone. It really depends on what kind of relationship you have with other sacred plants and other sacred medicines. But for these ceremonies, we request that everyone that comes in preparation, they withdraw from certain things, from things from the day to day, like things like dairy, and fermented foods like tofu or kimchi or whatever, kombucha, things like this, and then also supplements, some supplements, like St. John's Wort, and a couple different things. So we have a list that we go over with people. We send a consent form and dieta and health precautions. And so we talk also. That's the physical aspect, and then we go into the safety of the consciousness aspect. Why are you doing this? That's the main question. Why are you being drawn? Why are you feeling that like this is the right thing for you to do? Why? And then we talk a little bit about it. What is the perception of what you can get from this? Because a lot of people have heard one or two podcasts from Joe Rogan, and they've seen the wow,
Joe
this is
Rogan, and
awesome.
then
And it's fine, it's all
yeah,
good, that's the doorway. But at the same time, we want to understand that this is not like that. This is actually has to be taken seriously. It's a weekend again of healing, of introspection. And if the person actually just wants to connect to other realms and other dimensions for exploration, rather than introspection. If they want to go and see sacred geometry and things like this, we're not opposed to this. We all go through this. It's something that comes naturally. It's one of the three steps of the way that medicines work. It first acts as a medicine, and then it gives you the vision, and then the medicine as a teacher, which is what we're doing. We're here to learn from these teachings of the plant medicines, of the spirits of the medicine. And so the visionary aspect is what usually draws people in, and we call it the sexy part. That attractive part. That really pulls you in, and people want to see. Whatever.
the fantastic
Other
end.
dimensions, and
Yeah.
and they and it's fine, but we respect it, but this is not so much what we're trying to do, because we're dealing with such tangible energies, and sometimes it could be somebody's coming for a deep intention of healing, and when they're healing something really dense, really heavy hucha, for someone that doesn't have that intention, it could be that they've fallen outside of the protection of the circle. They're just focused outwardly, not inwardly, and so it becomes a little bit of could become traumatic. For someone who's not going into it, even by their own stuff, not so much somebody else's energy jumping into them, but
Yeah, yeah.
their own. Their own. They come up and they're not prepared. They don't have that intention of inner healing, and so when they open up that portal for all of the subconscious things that are not in harmony to come up, it could be overwhelming. And even though that we're there and we're guiding, the mind also has to want this. Has to be prepared, and in an intentional way go into this. So it's a screening process of understanding what is it. Making sure that you're aware of all of the ins and outs of what could happen, so that you make a conscious decision whether it's the right thing for you to come, or maybe there's some other things that you could do. That there's other safer type of psychedelics that can let you explore this, like LSD, and maybe candy flip, MDMA with LSD, or MDMA with a little bit of mushrooms, or who knows. There's other things. We're not opposed to any of these exploration things, but this one, in this case, we want to have integrity as to what are we doing. And it also, it's a way of being conscious of what we're creating as a group, as a whole. And what happens is, if everybody has that intention, then the energy really manifests in very helpful ways. What happens is the healing of the whole group, because everybody has that same intention. Then it's a group consciousness healing. And the transformations that happens are miraculous. Sometimes it's well, we can get into that if it's of interest, but some really beautiful things happen, both physically and in a consciousness type of way.
That
So those are the main two things that we would screen for, making sure that everybody's on the same page.
Okay, we'll get to your question in a sec, Theodian. But that brought up something for me that I've been thinking about lately,
Uh-huh.
on the same line of thought as overdoing one thing. My question was, so for the past maybe 10 years or so since I've been on this spiritual path, it's always been about healing, healing, always healing. And then I started thinking, is there a catch to that? Like, if you're focused on healing so much that you're saying like there's something wrong with you, you're saying that you need to be healed. That basically what I'm getting at is that at what point are you healed, and can you use, say, ayahuasca or these other plants for something like exploration or connecting with the ancestors, and like, okay, I've done the work. Like, how many times do I have to be healed by this plant? Because I know people who've been doing ayahuasca healings for a decade, you know what I mean? And they go like every few months, and it's like, I believe that it heals, but I'm like, can you create an imbalance constantly trying to heal, or by creating problems that aren't there? Like, how?
Yes. That's a really good point, man. That's a really good point. Yeah, man, it's something unfortunate that happens at times. And what it is, you know, people take this for the wrong ideas. You know, there is such a thing like spiritual ego, and you know, we've seen people, you know, that come from different groups and that they've taken ayahuasca 300 times, you know, over 300 times, and they're keeping counts. It's like 357 times. This is going to be my 358. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, all right. You know, it's like, it kind of makes you wonder, it's like, why are you counting, you know? It's like, where are you going with all of this? You know,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
have you done? And then the issue with that is that, you know, the facts are the facts. Okay, so what have you been integrating? What have you integrated? And there's no doubt that with the use of this, you develop your glands, you develop your intuition, you develop your third eye, and so your capacity to see introspectively in any moment and to see false from real, it gets developed, right? People can start communicating with different beings, with different dimensions and energy. But you know, when it comes to self work, to deep work, you know, integration is key. You know, so a lot of the times they do every Friday they will be doing, you know, ceremony. Oh, we have ceremony here, we have ceremony there, and they get connected. They get plugged to a couple different groups that they go to ceremonies 3-4 times a month, and it's one time, you know, instead of going into a retreat, that it can actually offer the space for deeper introspection, deeper reflection of everything that is being worked on, and in a way to make it tangible, which is the way that we have designed this is just for that, you know. And so the change also happens only if there's a commitment, you know, because you know and this is something that we share in every single one of the retreats, and it's something that I said right now. This is not a fixed ticket. You will get a glimpse. The medicines are just glimpses, you know. They will help you see where has been the mistake that has been made. Not to say like I made a mistake, but if, you know, a mistake was made, you know, a mistake was made, you know, not to identify with the mistake itself. But then what happens is, you know, it's very unfortunate that they leave and they think that that's it. You know, there's like, okay, I'm healed. I purged it and it's no longer a part of me. And that's not the reality of it. The reality of it is that the patterns, the emotional patterns, and the emotional patterns take some you know, consistency and some consistent discipline and a commitment to change. If we don't have that in place, really nothing changes. And so we have integration emails, and we have a whole month after the retreat happens, a whole month that we create a group so that people can be sharing their experiences, and you know, we keep on sharing wisdom. We, the facilitators, we are available for a whole month, as much as people want to use us for reflection, use us for, you know, if they're going through something deep. Because what happens after the ceremony, the veil of the ego gets so thinned out, and you come back to your day to day, and it's going to start, you know, getting a little, you know, concrete again. You know, that sphere of ego, that energy of ego is going to, you know, become again. And because your consciousness is expanded, also the ego expanded. This is not something that we're ever going to kill. You know, it's with us as long as we live. You know, if you have read, you know, things like the 9 letters of Christ, or even in the Bhagavad Gita and different ones, you know, they say like, um, this path is really not so much about killing the ego. Is something natural, something that we have been gifted with. It's our teacher. And so people think that by purging all of this, it's like, oh, my ego's done, but they don't realize that they're still thinking from ego. And so it's deep, man. It's deep because, you know, the ego will come back and comes stronger. You know, the ego after a ceremony comes stronger and say like, ha ha ha, I survived this, you know, and it's like, I made it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
they
yeah.
start pumping themselves up from people who are not yet awoken, you know, and they're just like pointing fingers, and I'm a vegan and all of these things, you know. It's like, uh, whether it's right or not to be a vegan, we're neutral, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not understanding energetically about what that means, but regardless of how many times people make ceremony, the important thing is to understand that unless we make a serious commitment to change those things that have been shown to us by the medicines, really nothing changes, man. So, and it's very important to commit. It's very important to commit. And so the way that we make change is by changing these emotional patterns, by changing the way that we perceive life. And medicine does help, you know, really does help. But if the emotional and the mental patterns are so deeply ingrained, if you have so many triggers that you're not unaware of, life is gonna get you again. Life is gonna get you
Yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and it's the first thing that I said. We're not supposed to depend on this, which is what unfortunately some people do. But because there's not a real or a clear understanding of what they're for, and why is it that we're doing this on a bigger picture, then there's a they keep on doing things that harm themselves, harm their conscience, separate, and they're in a consistent inner conflict. And we understand, and we sit with them too, and we share this, and it's a personal choice. That's when the person is finally done with suffering, when the pain has been enough, and they've been like a ping pong ball enough of situations and emotions and energy and all of this. That's when the psyche finally awakens to say, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to make some definite change.
It's a good way to put it. The last few times I did it, I obviously I was going to fix some things and to learn about myself, but it's one thing to like have that feeling, and I don't think I had that sincere feeling where I was like, I'm going to take these lessons from the plant and run with them and make it happen. I was more like, I hope this works, like it should work. People says it works, and then I got done with it, and it's like, yeah, that was like
Yeah.
not the hype that I saw exactly like on Joe. It wasn't the Joe Rogan experience. So I was like kind of indifferent. I did it a few times and it was helpful, but like
Of course.
it was like I talked to you about this on the phone. It was almost so dreamlike that as the days went on, I couldn't even remember what happened as far as the teachings, and it was like,
Fast.
you know what I mean? It was like it happened. It's such like like people. It's true. It's like cramming years of therapy into one night. Plus,
It
it
is.
feels like a dream, and so you're like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I
for
can I
sure.
can see why you need to do it a whole bunch of times, or maybe not, or me maybe I need it a bunch of times. But I was just curious about the balance and stuff like that, and because I was drawn in by the fantastic side than the healing side. It was like, oh, like I would love to meet interdimensional being. I would love to activate psychic power. I would love to be
This is
more
what
in
I
tune with nature.
expected, 100%. Expected because it probably, a lot of the people, if not, I don't know if 50%, but it feels like a lot of like a big number, like a big percentage of everyone that comes into this comes through that doorway. And but now what we're doing is we're consciously letting everyone know, like there's a different doorway that we can go
For
in.
sure.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's because all of what we want, all of these things, the psychic powers, things like being in line with synchronicity and being able to partake of time
Yeah,
space
yeah.
and really have your energy be tangible to the point that you can actually use energy. And a lot of the things that you're gifted with, it's a natural consequence of the inner healing.
Yeah, that's
That
yeah, good
we
way
don't
of
really
putting it.
have to go into, because then who's really wanting it for what? For what
Yeah,
reason?
yeah.
Why are we going deep into that? I want. This is something that kind of like just flourishes and nourishes, like just blossoms naturally. The and these are qualities of the self. These are qualities of the reason that we're doing this. Of the healing and the introspection and getting to know ourselves. You know yourself, and you can really resonate with everything within the world. And so, anyways, that's it's good though. That, like now it gets you to question, to wonder. It's like and it did for me too, brother. It
Yeah,
did.
yeah. No, my experiences were not at all what I was expect. I didn't put too much expectation on it, but what I was hit with was like it was wonderful. It was intense and it wasn't intense. It was heavy and like gritty, but it was also so. I was like, I don't know. It was wonderful. But
Yeah,
anywho, we have a good question.
sure.
Theodian asked, "What is the background of the practitioners? Like, how do they get qualified to facilitate?" That's actually was one of my questions too. Like, what's your background essentially? What do you, I guess, where are you from? What do you study? Is it qualifications? Like, what's this sort of process?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So there's a few of us, and all of us have been initiated in Keto shamanism. And there's actually not really a Keto shamanism um, tradition. It's the Keto lineage really, but it could be related to shamanism because that is the path of that lineage. It's like really getting to know nature, getting to know yourself. And so shaman means to know. It comes from the word saman from Siberia. And so I've been initiated in personally. I've been initiated in different practices from Hindu traditions, different gates of knowledge from different traditions of Advaita Vedanta. I've had a couple of gurus that I've worked with directly, and I've been teaching, some of this wisdom for 6, 7 years. And it really did start for me in 2013 when my son was born. I was really afraid that I was gonna, mess him up. I was totally, in deep fear because it wasn't really just a fear. It was a knowing, because I was this completely uh, different personality and persona at that time. I was 29 years old, and so when he was born, me growing up in Mexico and in Chihuahua, which is the cartel zones, and having a lot of the relatives, involved in, you can kind of like get a little bit of a glimpse of what kind of bringing, and then I
Definitely.
did college years in Texas and all of that. So I was very much of the world, like um, you know for a long time I was uh, sort of a kill or be killed kind of consciousness, always expecting the worst from people. In the business world, I would climb real quick to positions of management because I was, I knew, and all of the ins and outs, But when he was born, I was really scared. When my son was born, I was like, generally I was crying. My mom and my dad came to visit. When he was born, and I remember to crying with them. And I said, like, I'm scared. I really don't want to mess him up. When he was born, I recognized that purity, and I recognized life, consciousness in that for the first time as a reflection of myself. And so I recognized that I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready energetically. I was still like a very angry guy, and so that's when it started. I made a prayer like with all my heart, and say like, I need help. I need help. And sure enough, within the next couple of months, something happened. I had an awakening experience that prompted all of this that we're doing now. And it didn't really start with medicine for me. It started with a text called The Nine Letters of Christ, and so that kind of like put me in this space. It was a very very deep. I'll share with you. It's a pretty long story, but I'll share with you later. But that was the beginning, and then from there I never stopped. I have just been continuing, looking for more, looking for that height of that experience of awakening that I had, which was surreal. It's like 7 days of complete sober ecstasy. Like if you've ever taken Molly, it's that kind of peak of just like blissful love and just like complete awareness and like no hate and it's like no ego. And so I wanted to get back there again and again and again. And it's been a gradual progression to reach higher levels of understanding. And so yes, I've shared a lot of the spaces, sacred medicine spaces with maestros, and then also with shamans, with pampa misayos, and which are the priests are the high priestess. So in the Quero tradition, there's two paths that you can choose. You can either go into the path of the Alto Misayo, which is the high priest that can communicate to the mountains, to the spiritual beings that hold the wisdom of existence, right? And then there's the Pampa Misayo, and which is the other path. And so the Pampa Misayo is, he works with the left and the right, the Paña and the Yolke type of knowledge. And so, working with different masters, different teachers in medicine. I was very lucky to find a Quero priest, a Quero teacher that took me under his wing, and he's my brother, and I still love him. We worked together for about 2 years, and I learned everything, and then I received another teacher. Another teacher came, and this was an Alto Misayo, from a different lineage, a different tradition, and so received some blessings, some initiations, and then from the Andean tradition. So all of this, what I just told you, is the Quero lineage, and then also within Peru, there's different regions, and so there's the Andean tradition too. And so from Benito Corihuaman, pretty recently I started getting a carpa, getting initiated with, a deeper knowledge. And all of this has been supplemental to my own experiences, to my own devotion, to my own journeys with the medicine. I've gone through self initiations where do daily medicine for weeks. Like ayahuasca on my own. Just going in within myself, not for anyone, just to explore myself, and the same with Padre Sapo, and with other medicines, getting initiations of Campbell and things like this, to be able to do this. The medicine work and the medicine space of, the consciousness space of medicine has been, by far the most experiential thing that I've learned from. But also it has been really valuable at the same time to put all of this in context from all of the teachings from Advaita Vedanta, from the Christ consciousness understandings, the Christ consciousness knowledge, and then also from the Kero tradition. And then, as you start to work deeply, at the beginning there was a lot of separation. It's like, okay, it's either here or here or here, or where am I going? What's the right way? And then it gets to the point that you understand that it's all the same, because you actually have gone deep enough within yourself that you can understand all of the vocabularies. Really doesn't matter. What matters is what all of the wisdom and all of the knowledge is coming from, which is from that same space. And so that has been in a nutshell. Of course, it's been years and years of experiences of working with people,
Yeah.
with different entities, with different initiations for myself. Crossing over multiple times. Different experiences that have helped me realize the nature of ego, the nature of the mind, and something like this. But at no point, and we always say this, we don't make claims of enlightenment. We don't like to say that we are enlightened. We're not. We still have, we're just like you and anybody else. We just have just a little bit more experience, in dedication to this. We have a chosen path that kind of puts us in a very specific way forward with the medicines. Again, we don't claim enlightenment. We don't make claims of enlightenment. Although there has been enlightening moments, there has been moments of total clarity that we can partake, and we take them with discipline, and we value those so much to make the changes necessary within our consciousness. And we have seen it. We have seen the changes in our surroundings, with our families, in our own temperament, in how we're able to feel, life, emotion from ourselves, from other people, consciousness of places, and things like this. We're able to be a little bit more self-aware of what's really happening around us and within us. Connecting to different spaces of, Mercury retrogrades, and Saturn energies of the cosmos, too, and yugas and all of this. And so the as far as the other facilitators, they're pretty much in the same wagon as I am, except a few of them are initiated in African traditions, and they're very well versed in rituals and understanding of how the energy becomes tangible through Ifa, and hoodoo, and other things. However, it's from the purest type of understanding, and we're brothers and sisters. We have been working, and it's a group of facilitators. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 2, depending on the size. Sometimes it's 5. It varies, depending on the need for the group, and size and everything. And sometimes people just get called to come and assist, and there's volunteers and all sorts of things.
This we're reserving the one in May for 20 people, and so what's that? Probably 2 facilitators.
Yeah. For 20 people, at the very least 3, but I'm thinking more like 4 at the least.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's going to be 24 total.
Okay. Nice. There was one more question I missed earlier. This is a good one because this is something that a lot of people actually ask me about high anxiety and panic attacks. I mean, I know it's specifically for that, but what are you saying to someone for, not specifically for, but I know it helps it a lot, but what would you say to someone who that could, at least in the moment, increase your anxiety, even though it helps in the long run? How do you handle that?
Right. Well, so it really depends on the person. It really depends. And if the person is being called to heal panic attacks and the anxiety, like for example, we've had multiple people that come and sit with us with suffering from deep thoughts of suicide daily, and they sit with us in one retreat, and never again it happens, But it's a process of really understanding the energy that is prompting this, because there's a reason why. It's not just some random thing that is happening that we're experiencing. these are again, it all comes back to the way that we have allowed ourselves to perceive life. And so we might have a lot of triggers that prompts insecurity, and so understanding what beliefs have caused these triggers, what beliefs have caused these perceptions, I'm sorry. And so, we understand ourselves first. We have, if the person needs it, usually there's no no need for this. But if the person needs it, we always are available prior to ceremony to have a conversation about exactly what is really prompting this. What is the essence of that energy that is making you feel anxious, or having these panic attacks? We understand this. We feel that they're very important concerns. And so in the moment when it happens, it might happen. It's very sometimes it happens, and we have the the necessary and established knowledge of how to deal with all of this. It's not a it's not you know it's not something foreign to the medicines. The medicine, the only way to really heal all of that is to go through that and to really experience it fully in ways that the mind has no choice but to just feel all of that. And then it'll come in a purge, and the energy does purge. So it'll give you a release from that energy so that you can actually become outside of that storm of emotion. And in between that storm, you have a really good setting, especially the second day, to be able to integrate the right beliefs, the right understanding, the right knowledge to change those patterns, to really, change the chapter, change, instead of reading the same chapter, the same story, to really heal the story, to heal the past, and work with the ancestors, work with our child, our inner child, and let die whatever has been, killing us, whatever has been, of damaging essence to our energy and to our day-to-day life. We go into the medicines with that understanding that I'm here to experience all of this for that, to be able to heal that, and knowing that we can trust the medicines, and that everything that happens, is part of Kausai. Kausai is a living energy of existence, and so all of this is part of that. So instead of fighting with this energy of anxiety or panic, we relax in the moment, and if it starts to take over, we'll be there. We're always there, not to save, but to really guide the energy. And however, I actually did have, my first time that I went with ayahuasca, I did have, some anxiety. I have, high levels of anxiety, to the point that I would take, Zoloft, or, some other type of antidepressant. And so after I cleansed myself for, a couple of weeks, and I went to my first ceremony, I was expecting it. I was expecting it so fully. But I also had this understanding that there was already some higher consciousness that could guide me through all of that. And so yes, I felt it. I felt the grogginess, and I felt all of that, the essence of that energy, and I was able to purge it, and I was able to connect to that, higher essence that, opened up the doorway for me to see where was this coming from, and how is it that that I was responsible for it, in the first place. And so by understanding that we don't reject any one type of energy, any one type of aspect of existence, including depression, including, heavy dense energies, then we have, at that point, taking responsibility, understanding that we are the ones experiencing this. So if I am the one, it's not something outside of me, it's something that is flowing through me. I have to be honest and humble with myself to understand that it was me, in the first place, who allowed this to be, whether it was consciously or unconsciously. It's me. It all boils down. It all comes back to us. And that's the only way to be present. The only way to be to take responsibility for our own life. And so this is a little bit of the wisdom that we share from the Keto tradition, and something that we not only it's not going to be a concept anymore. We're actually going to get to experience this, to experience the wisdom, and the way that we relate to this wisdom, and use it for our day to day. How am I responsible for everything that's happening to me? Whether it's a finance issue, or whether it's an emotional issue, or a relationship issue, whatever, everything. And so we use principles of forgiveness, forgiving ourselves. We're separating and qualifying incorrectly the energy and the consciousness and everything. So yeah, I mean, going back to the original question, I would say check first with yourself to see if this is something that calls you, if this might be, and if you feel like that you have been resonating with sacred medicines and if they've been calling you, you feel that this might be a way of healing that, that this trust that trust your feelings, trust your feeling, and trust that calling that sometimes is not very clear, but nonetheless is a calling, and come with an open mind, come with an open mind to know that it can be healed. This is what we're.
John Smith has been called for plant medicines for years now. I've talked to him for a while. He's been wanting something like this for a long time, and that's always when I've talked to him. It's always been his main concern. Is like, yo, how is this gonna? That can make you anxious, and that's the one thing I deal with. Kind of like.
Sure.
I can only speak from my psychonaut days where I'm like, hey man, do it anyways. Like, don't listen to me. I'm not a doctor, but if you were my buddy and we were going through this, I'd be like, do it, man. That's the most common fear everyone has, and we all come out the other side for the better. And so, but I want to hear you as like someone who's experienced and has the episodes and can deal with them, and not just like the settings are drastically different than what I'm used to.
Yeah, a lot of the people that sometimes it could be up to 70%, sometimes it's 20%, but there's always a lot of people coming back, to these retreats because they have seen the changes, and then it's a reaffirmation that it was a good decision, that calling, that responding to that initial intuition of going into sacred medicines. It's bringing more awareness and a change in awareness within themselves that they can benefit from, not only themselves but their whole environment, their workplaces, their families, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, hopefully that was helpful, Mr. Smith. He's still hanging on there. There's some interesting comments going around. You guys have any other questions pertinent to the plant ceremonies? Oh, there's a bee flying up here, going to the rose oil. That's funny. I don't think I missed any related questions. Are you going to be working with any I only ask because I'm growing copal trees. I have a few copal trees to see, but do you do like smudging ceremonies during it, or what was the hape, I think is one of them?
Yeah. All throughout the night we have different medicines available to whoever wants to partake. And then on Saturday on San Pedro, what we're working with Padre Wachuma, Padre San Pedro, we have different types of hapes, and we have, I don't know if you can see them, but we have a ton of other medicines that are, complementary, in the sense that they complement the experience of ayahuasca, of San Pedro, and so their medicines hape and sananga. They are the main ones that we're going to be having circles of.
What are can you go into detail with those? Because those are
Yeah. So hape is the base of hape. There's tons. There's I can't tell you how many because everybody can make their own hape.
Sure, I remember them saying something about that. Yeah.
So, but we work with specific ones. They're all made of the base of the hape is mapacho. Mapacho's nicotina rustica is a type of tobacco, like natural tobacco leaf from the jungle. And so sometimes they put different plant teacher medicines. Like for example, sometimes they can put capi vine. Sometimes they put the ayahuasca vine ash. They can put eucalyptus. They can put sunu. They can put different things. Like for example, sometimes they can put yopo. Although we will have yopo as well.
You guys will have. That was one of the first plants that introduced me into this entire world was yopo. Yeah. Even before ayahuasca, I haven't heard anyone talk about that. That'll be there as well.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. That's available only during ayahuasca for someone that it's going through a little bit of a hard time. We offer that, but we also offer hape during ayahuasca to ground if it's too high up. So depending on where the person is. We have a couple of different compliments. On top of that, we can have one-on-ones in the middle of the ceremonies outside of the group, to kind of make redirect the journey, help you redirect the energy. But we will have on Saturday we will have circles of hape, and so it's a very grounded medicine. It's considered mapacho is considered the spirit of self-knowledge in the jungle, and so we know ourselves through knowing our sensations, knowing how our body reacts to all of this, and then we have an opportunity to connect to tobacco, and it does open up a space for introspection and for connection with ourselves. And then sananga is eye drops that sting a little bit. And so, a lot of people, a lot of the times, people have these belief that I want a life of comfort, and I don't want to feel pain, and nobody likes to feel pain, right? But the issue with that is that because we make a conceptual separation of not feeling pain, then we start to separate from life. We start to really say no to different types of experiences that could be beneficial. And so Sananga gives us an experience of redefining what pain is, so that we can actually take off, the labels to what we understand as pain. Because one of the wisdom points from Advaita Vedanta, and it's very one of the high points of wisdom from Ashtavakra Gita is that pain is inevitable in life.
Yes,
From
it
the
is.
moment we're born, it's whether we resist it or not, or we like it or not, it's out of the question. That's not nothing to do with the fact that from the moment we're born, we feel pain. We feel pain, and not physical pain, of course. I'm talking just pain in general. Like Eckhart Tolle says, is there's the pain body, and it could be physical, but it can also be mental. It could be emotional pain, and it's all of this. We tend to reject these parts of ourselves, and so we create internal separations with different experiences of life. And so this medicine is healing. Obviously, it's a medicine as well from the jungle that helps with eye health. So it helps with cataracts, and very, very powerful. They use it at night. The hunters in the jungle, they use it to hunt at night. So it actually opens up your pupils. And so we have an experience with that. We surrender to the pain, and then we can just feel the flow of all of our senses, all of our we become in touch with our nervous system in ways that we haven't experienced before. So that when emotional pain comes, you can actually allow it to flow and say, okay, I'm here. I'm feeling this emotion. I'm feeling this pain. I'm feeling this discomfort, whether it's physical or emotional or mental. And so those are the other two circles that we will have on Saturday. That are very, very good, very, very powerful circles. A lot of people in the moment, of course, they go through the painful experience, but usually the reaction afterwards is like, I feel so clean, and it cleanses. Pain really washes out any anxiety, any density. If you have a little bit of fear or whatever, it really cleanses, and it really brings you present.
The hape that you're talking about, the hape, right? Or the hape?
No, Sananga,
Oh, the sananga.
the eye
Oh,
drops.
okay, okay, okay. I didn't experience that, but the hape I did, and it was exactly as you described it. It brought me down a little bit. I was almost too far,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it was like as dreamy
Self-knowledge.
as the experience was, is how crisp and clear it was within a matter of seconds. It burned like all hell, but after it was just like, whoa! It's like I'm here, like
Right.
flawlessly sensing everything, including the pain and everything.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It wasn't
Yeah.
explained that way before, so that's
Yeah.
it's nice to know like how and why these things are going on. Um,
Right.
all right.
The thing that I left out, we kind of got into asking you if you knew about Bufo, and then we transitioned into the questions. But the last process that we'll have is the most powerful process on the retreat, which is the Bufo, is the Padre Sapo. So this is the this is the one. For me personally, this is my personal medicine. The reason why I did receive invitations from Father Ayahuasca after taking such you sometimes get messages, right? And so I did receive from ayahuasca from Padre San Pedro, and but from Sapito was like overwhelming signals, that this was the one, and so for me it's the deepest, most powerful, because you open up a portal that transcends body and mind. When you're working with ayahuasca, you're in a third eye. It's a visual experience. You can see, you can feel, you're here. With Padre Sapo, you actually have an opportunity to opening up a portal so that you consciousness, your higher self consciousness comes in forward, all of its splendor, all of its life, radiance, and you experience everything that you are with such clarity. And so it could be that people purge, and it's only 20 minutes. But if you don't, then it's an embodiment of consciousness that helps you push forward in right knowing in empowered ways. All of the teachings and all of the lessons that you receive from this week. And so it's a very transformational tool. It's very powerful. You've probably seen the testimonies of Tony Robbins, of Mike Tyson, Terrence McKenna. There's just on and on and on and on about the beauty of this. It's a balance. It's a balance. One of the reasons why I think it's so powerful is because it's balancing masculine and feminine. All of the medicines have masculine and feminine, but they're usually predominant in one or the other, which is why San Pedro we say it's masculine, it's feminine, but this one is actually dual. It's very balanced, and so what you experience is a total balance of totality of what you are, and it's it's amazing. It's the true meaning of the higher self. So it's not a medicine that you're going to be in your body. It's not a medicine that you're going to be in your mind. It's going to transcend all of the dimensions of reality of regular consciousness, which is the 3D. You sap into a different plane of existence, consciousness, pure consciousness. So that's well,
He's referring to Bufo, you guys. It's called Padre Sapo, which translates to Father Toad, Father Frog.
Toad. So Padre Sapito, we call it Sapito, Padre Sapito, and Sapito is an endearing term for it means like little toad. So it's we call it father because the toad itself, you don't say female toad or masculine toad. Toad, when you think of a toad, you feel Mexicans are a little one-sided, machismo and whatever. But,
yeah,
it's very much mother toad as well. It's father mother toad. It would be the appropriate term, father mother toad, and that's the one that usually people sometimes come for private sessions of just that, and they have entities, they have years of alcoholism, and 20 minutes, you're done. You really see the reality of yourself so clearly that you understand, and you don't even feel the need to energetically to go back into self-destructive patterns or things like this. So it's the one that and yeah, I mean, this is not to take, please don't misunderstand, this is not to put it on top of ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is the conscious growth little by little, but this one is the big glimpse of the reality of existence. This one is Padre Sapo, is Padre Madre Sapito, is the glimpse of the reality of the self within us, is that place where we go back, the place that we come from, is the alpha and the omega, is everything.
it's the realm of the machine elves. If you guys follow Terrence McKenna, I believe is what he calls them. And many other people at this point. Who was that documentary? I'm sure you guys are all familiar with it. If you're not picking up, what we're putting down yet is DMT, the spirit molecule. Is what he's talking about, the toad medicine, the father and mother toad medicine. That's what he's getting at, basically. So if you've seen DMT, the spirit molecule, it's all over Netflix. I'm sure you could find it on YouTube. That was under a laboratory setting, so they were hooking it up intravenously through an IV, so it was way different, I'm sure, than what's going to be happening at.
Yeah, that's synthetic, and it's a different aspect to it.
Yeah, that was synthetic, and this is a different thing called the 5-MeO, is the way it occurs naturally on the toad. So, but just so you guys know, I believe all of them. Ayahuasca is dimethyltryptamine based. Psilocybin mushrooms are a type. What's that?
San Pedro is a little bit different.
San Pedro, yeah, San Pedro is mescaline based, so that's a different molecule. But I've never under any setting, really participated in San Pedro or peyote or any of really the mescaline-bearing cacti.
You're gonna love it, brother.
You really?
It's-
Yeah, I hear it's
yeah.
the overwhelming response is it's more of like a beautiful, loving, like just I don't know, sensational. You know, not so much seeing or tripping out or things
Yeah.
like that.
They both can be. They can be. There can be some visuals. It depends on how open you are. If you have developed like really deeply,
I see.
and we're not taking heroic doses to go into those visual spaces. It's a sober integration. But when I say sober, it's very very emotional. And so yes, the emotions can be really light, can be really, but at the same time, there's been a lot of times that it's healing. So healing is not always beautiful and nice. It can be rough. It can be hard on making peace with how we feel about ourselves. And so it's like just like any other medicines is something that we cannot put a finger into what to expect. But yes, I mean it's more emotional. It's definitely non-psychoactive at these levels. Again, this is not what we're looking for, but you definitely experience a healing of your inner setting.
Great. I think you have to take off pretty soon, right?
A little bit.
Do
If
you
there's
guys have
other
any
questions, I'm
any
be
other
happy to.
any other questions, you guys? Jenny Pete would like to know how she got a bufo in her pool with no openings in the fence. I'm claiming aliens or tadpoles.
How do you know it's a bufo though? That's my. I would like to know.
Also, a good question. How do you know what's a Other than that, while we wait, what? Why is the voice? Oh yeah, I guess you're having some audio issues. Oh, the detox preparation steps might be kind of long. If he can go over that. I'm sure. There's also.
Yeah, no, for all of the prep. So I guess at this point is, if there's any other questions about the specifics of preparation, lodging, the food, all of those details, please reach directly. Either they can reach out to you, or if you want to share my email also, they can reach out to me, and we can start sharing all of the documents, the consent forms. There's I think a total of like 7 PDF files, and some of them are pretty extensive. And we want to give you the right context of what is it that this is, how is it that we have observed the medicines to interact. Some tips for the first timers, if there's anyone that feels called and you feel that this is the right thing for you. There's some tips for the first time participants, tips for the ayahuasca experience, tips for the San Pedro experience. Just good context that doesn't give you really much. It's not so much about expectation, but about practical observation of the things that can happen. And so we will share all of those as you reach out to us.
Yes. So we will basically get a hold of me, get a hold of neighbor. I know there's a bunch of. What's a funny story is the medicine teacher that I sat with has gone to South America and done it a lot, and people were asking him like veganism, should you not, like how strict does it need to be? There's a sort of air of you have to be a saint and follow these things. But what the teacher was telling me, he's like, yeah, that's true on one hand, but on the other hand, I've been in places where they're having like hamburgers. The people who are teaching it are having like hamburgers the afternoon of. He didn't give me any context, but what I got from it is that everyone's different, and some people are really strict, and some people in jungle are just like, I'm gonna eat what I eat, and I'm not gonna purge, and I'm gonna be fine. And I thought that was interesting.
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of truth to that. They're eating actual hamburgers. I'm not sure about that.
He might have said that loosely. Maybe not McDonald's or something.
But there's definitely people sometimes, like especially the shamans, will eat like have a chicken soup, before, and it's just because of the physical aspect. It does require the facilitation and holding onto the energy. You cannot be way too light, because it could be it could be overwhelming for the shaman himself, or herself. And so we want a little bit of sustenance, but I wouldn't get into that. Definitely no, especially if this is your first time.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And so veganism, vegetarianism is fine, although the last 3 days, and all of this is going to be in the files, but the last 3 days we do request that people go, no dairy, so no cheese, no milk, and obviously no meat. Throughout the preparation, fish is okay, but the last 3 days, if you have taking out junk food, the sodas, the excess sugars, excess salt, excess acid, like coffees and stimulants, spicy foods and all of that stuff, fried food for sure. If you have done that conscientiously for 2 weeks, at the very least 10 days, then the last 3 days is just kind of like the cherry on top for you to have a good process. And we request people eat, like just fruit and salad, some veggies, and tea is fine as long as it's not caffeine. And this is going to be rewarded for for, uh, for the first ceremony. Ayahuasca is a very wise teacher, and it knows if you have put it really is a spirit. You're talking to a being, and so it really knows if you have put some effort on your part to receive the wisdom that it has to give you, and it will only give you as much as you prepare. If you're not ready to receive because we still have maybe a little bit of rebelliousness, and you're like, nah, I don't believe that, and then the process is going to be a different process, and there's actually places in the jungle that they prepare for 2 weeks with dietas of just one type of they fast only drinking bobinsana or chiricsanango, different plant medicines, and they do this to go super, 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 super deep, to those levels where, the medicine will mold your consciousness in deep ways, the glimpses, there are going to be glimpses as powerful as Padre Sapo, but imagine an experience of 5 hours of that instead of 20 minutes. So, there is, nothing comes out of nothing, so as much as you want to prepare and be conscious about your preparation, that's always our recommendation, especially with it might be hard for people taking prescriptions, but if you feel that you can go off your antidepressants, you feel like you need to get an okay, if you have high blood pressure, you want to get the okay from your doctor, there's always a possibility of that, then the reward does come. For people with asthma, it's
It
okay.
does.
You bring your so
Bring your EpiPens if you guys are allergic to bees or anything like that. um, Nice. There's one thing that you said that wanted me to tell a story of my experience, and you were telling about what to expect, and she's gonna have a certain interaction with you, Mama Aya.
yeah,
And the first time I did it, everyone says it's going to be rough. You're going to be shown the things that you're trying not to see, and ayahuasca is going to have this sort of really aggressive. You've been fucking up the whole time, and now you need to get better, basically. So I had this fear in my head of how negative that aspect was going to be of dealing with all my shit, basically. And that wasn't the case at all. What had happened is when I finally was in it and I was introduced to the spirit of ayahuasca, it felt like an old woman, like a grandmotherly woman, and she knew that I had that thought, and I didn't have to say anything, but what she said was, it doesn't, she kind of laughed at me and like, it doesn't have to be like that way, and she said it can be. She's like, we can do that for sure. You want it to be aggressive, and like it was just, and I was like, no, and she's like, okay, well then let's do it. And then immediately I was in my mind, I was in a boxing ring, and I don't know if you guys have sat in ceremonies, but there's a swing. It's like heavy, and then it's light. It's like the whole room swings like it's
yes,
breathing, and the heaviness, she would be cheering me on from the boxing ring, and she was in my corner of the boxing ring, like guiding me through my trauma. And then the swing would go, the energy of the room would swing back, and she'd be massaging my shoulders, and she was like pep talking me like she was on my side. It was the strain. It was like, but I'll never forget that. She looked at me like, it doesn't have to be like, we can if you want it to. Like, I'll hand it to you if you want to like go down that route, but it doesn't, like, relax. It doesn't have to be that way. So
Mhm.
basically, the moral of the story is try not. I know it. Though a lot of the with psychedelics in general, like just being around them for the past decade, people have this idea of, oh my God, am I gonna have a bad trip, or am I gonna like become a crazy person? Like all these like built up unnecessary fears can come up, and that's not, for me and most of my friends, like that's not the case. There's moments of that, but you come out of it enlightened, and you have like epiphanies, and it's love and beauty, and it's darkness too. But like, try not to get caught up in all the bad things that can happen, basically, because you might find that that's not at all what happens. It could for sure happen too. Like, don't get me wrong, but it was just, man, it was so funny when she told me that. She's like, it did, like, relax. It doesn't have to be that way, you know. And it wasn't. There was some. I probably sat maybe not too many times. I don't know, like 2 or 3 weekends, and they've all been super helpful and like necessary, and I was super dreamy. It's been hard. I don't know. I feel like I definitely don't feel as if I'm getting as much out of it as other people do. But I don't know if that's because it seems so dreamy, or because I know a lot of people do it. They make a point to do it a bunch of times in a small period of time, whether it's 3 times in a weekend or 3 times over, you know, this month, or like 3 months in a row, once a weekend, where I did it a weekend like once a year for a couple of years, and that was all I did it. So I don't know. I'm sure every experience is different, and everyone integrates it differently. But that's been my experience, and it's been pretty wild.
Nice.
Yeah. So. What else we got going on here? I have an allergist. How do you check for allergies? Asking for check with your doctor, Gigi. I'm sure you can go call him in and ask him that. Elimination diet with a journal at home. That's something else. Cool. You guys have any other questions related to Sir Andres over here? Or questions about it in general? Someone was asking where we're at. We are near Santa Barbara, California, if you guys know where that is. It's about, the property itself is probably 2.5, 3 hours north of Los Angeles, in Santa Barbara County, if you know. That helps you dial it in. And May 8th through 10th, a couple people have hit me up already as far as their interest and to start the screening process. I've got to call someone after this live, actually.
Limited space.
Oh yeah, there's only 20 spots, and I don't know if that seems like a lot or a little to you guys, but I sat in circles that are massive, way bigger than 20. So seems to be a decent size. I like that number 20. So basically, get at us in the meantime. And great. It doesn't seem like we have any more questions.
Right on.
Yeah, and I'll check back in. Maybe if we have other cool stuff we can talk about, just to keep the momentum going on the retreat.
Yeah. We can make a whole section about ayahuasca alone, and then another one, different medicines.
Yeah, that actually. We can go hard. I know a lot of my following are super big on the nuts and bolts of how something works. You know what I mean? Not the spiritual aspect, but like what's going on with the 5-MeO, and why is that different from regular, and what's the experience, and like what's happening in the body. You know, there's a lot of plant nerds on this channel that like that kind of thing. You know. Oh, full moon. Is there a full moon? There is a full moon the first week of. Oh, I got another email about the retreat right now. Nice. I don't know if there's a full moon calendar. It would be nice if we already made the dates. It's 8th through 10th, so cross your fingers that it falls on something really cool that weekend. I'd actually prefer a new moon.
It's I think May 8th, but I mean it's Mother's Day weekend, right? So that's the one thing. So it's a celebration of that, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's that actual weekend, or the weekend follows it?
I thought it's like, well, I might be wrong, but in Mexico, May 10th is Mother's Day. So they might make it is it the second or third week?
Oh, it is the 10th. Yeah, that Sunday is Mother's Day, so you guys can.
Yeah, it's a really good celebration for the divine feminine, and all of the feminine relationships in our life. It's beautiful, man. What happens to that?
That's super nice. Great. All right, you guys. We'll check in soon. Again, email me if you have any questions, and say thank you to Andres for sparing some time to share knowledge and information. Our favorite things.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Catch you again soon.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.